week, all week, is going to be a great event. Next Friday, we're actually going to be meeting at the AT&T building, and we have a panel, and we're talking about creative spaces. And we're going to be up on the 11th floor at the AT&T building. We went and toured it. The view is amazing. You're going to love it. The speakers are going to be amazing. So great event coming up. Be there next Friday. Don't come here. Don't come to the convention
It's one building.
This
building over. The penthouse.
Yeah, the penthouse of the AT&T building. There's parking in the parking structure. It's all taken care of. Just show up. I want to say a quick thank you to all the organizers. We've got Andy and John and T and Sonia and Sophia helping put this together. And there's actually even a bigger team for Innovate Pasadena that's helping just put Innovate Pasadena on the map and put Connect Weekends together. And I was actually at an investor conference yesterday in Century City, and the keynote presenter, it was really interesting. I got excited about it. But he was saying in Los Angeles, there's two communities of innovation. One is Silicon Beach, and one is Innovate Pasadena. And it was really great hearing that we're considered one of the communities in all of Greater Los Angeles. So that was really exciting. We've got a great speaker today, Rob. You may know Rob. He's been coming here almost since day one, possibly even day one. He gave me this bio to read. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will give you a couple highlights. If you haven't met Bob, he's got this really great data technology that he's putting together, but he's also got a really deep background, just like a lot of the people here in the room. We've got some amazing people. Bob's got a big background with putting magazines. He was the editor of a couple magazines. He has written for publications like the LA Times, Forbes, Business Week, Fortune, Adweek, Westways. Lots of great things. I'll let you give more. I know you wanted me to read this one.
It's all right.
I want to give you more room for your
hour-long presentation.
But today we're going to talk about wearable tech. It's such a hot topic. We had a convention here at the convention center on wearable tech. Rob, you were there, I know. So everybody, please welcome Rob.
Okay, let's see if we can get some juice on this. How's that? You're okay? Yeah, thanks for not reading that very flattering introduction that I wrote. What it said in the introduction is basically my background is in tech journalism. So I've been an editor and an author and a journalist for a long time. I'm not actually doing that right now, but that was the bulk of my career. And so what I'm going to do this morning is frame everything in the terms of questions, because that's what we're trained as journalists to do. You know, who, what, when, where, why. And I love questions. Questions are kind of the secret to a good article. Ask the right question, you get a good article. Ask the right question for a book, get a good book. It actually works that way for business too. If you ask the right questions, it helps make a successful business. And the same thing goes for investing. The same thing goes for life, I think. So I've got a whole series of questions here. I'm not sure how many we'll get through in the time we have, but we'll click them as fast as we can. What I want to do is first ask this question, and that's, who are you? And that just helps us to find out who we are. So how many people here would describe themselves as an entrepreneur? Show of hands. Just, geez, almost everybody. How about who would describe themselves as a service provider? You know, a lawyer, accountant, dental hygienist? We got a few of those. Any investors? Who would describe themselves as an investor? We have two. Three.
Keep those
hands up. I want to get everybody involved in here. So, who would describe themselves as currently attending a tech presentation in Pasadena? We got almost 100%. There's somebody back there still didn't raise their hand, so give him his little space because he didn't know where he is. The next question that I wanted to kind of get into here is, have you seen 2001: A Space Odyssey? Who's seen that movie? Oh, great. I'm asking for two reasons. One is, this is a book and a movie that asks some pretty profound questions about human nature, about the future of humanity, and about our relationship to technology. And it still holds up as a film. I don't know how long it's been since you've seen it, but I saw it recently and it still really holds up. There's some big questions coming, and a lot of them have to do with the technology I'm going to be talking about right now. Another question, and I'll zip through this. You know, why am I here? Why are you listening to this tech journalist about wearable technology? Well, I'm not an expert. I'm not an SME in wearables. But I've covered a lot of industries. Get rid of that. I've covered a lot of industries over the years, and I've watched emerging technologies pop up. So, for example, I started writing about home video before we had any national rental chains, before we had any feature films even on video. About all we had was Jane Fonda exercise videos and porn. And if you've ever seen a Jane Fonda exercise video, you know those are just two versions of the same thing. But it's what got that whole industry started. And then I went on and I covered mobile computing, I covered desktop publishing, I covered the whole presentation industry for a long time, CD-ROM publishing, the emergence of the internet. And the reason I bring that up is I attended a lot of trade shows, a lot of conferences, probably 250, 300 is my estimate. And at the beginning of a new technology, the conferences are kind of ragtag little affairs. They're very modest. They're usually in a hotel ballroom or maybe in one room of a convention center. And there's kind of a ragtag group of people up on the dais in some kind of panel discussion. And there's keynote speakers that no one's ever heard of before. But there's always a buzz. There's always this vibe. If the technology is going to be something, you can feel it in the room. And these are the people who are there, who know it, and want to get in early. So earlier this summer, I was at the Wearables conference, as Mike said, over here in the Pasadena Convention Center. And I was going in because I thought it might have application to the work I'm doing now. And I walked in the door that morning, and it was deja vu all over again. I mean, I could literally feel the electricity, feel the vibe, feel the excitement. And there were the keynote speakers who no one had ever heard of, and there were these, sort of mishmash of speakers on the panel discussions, but you could really feel that something was happening. So what did I do? I did what I always have done. I run back and I started researching the market. What's this all about? And the more I researched it, the more I realized, like Wired Magazine has already said, this is the next big thing. And then as I looked at it more and more, I thought, oh, this is way bigger than I even imagined. So that's kind of how I ended up here. I actually was speaking to someone from this group, and they said, why don't you share this? This sounds really interesting. Share it with the IP group. And I said, yeah, all right. No reason to sit on it. So I've actually compiled it into a presentation. This will be posted, so watch the meetup board or my blog, and we'll let you know where it's going to be. And the other thing I really want to stress is, there's always a Q&A after these. Don't ask me any questions. I'm going to tell you everything I know. Because this is the state, that I'm in right now. So, let's see, here we go. If you saw the meetup, I called it, where is the money in wearables? And I had a couple other titles that I just want to share with you that I considered. One was this idea of calling it the, there we go, the amazing age of wearables. And it is going to be, but I thought this is a little hyperbolic and it may be a bit retro. So my other one was going to be, I was going to call it just Wearables, don't. And the reason for that is because when something shows up on The Simpsons, it has some kind of political, economic, or social significance, right? So if you get lampooned, you're there. The title that I ended up with, where's the money? I was looking for the lowest common denominator for this group. It was either going to be money or sex. So I just went with money. But I actually do have some sex coming up. So stick around if you have to leave early. I'm going to talk about four things. Basically the technology, the market, and the opportunities. And also the challenges. There's some pretty big obstacles ahead for this particular market. So the first big question, the main question I want to ask is, why does it matter? Why are wearables important? What's the big deal here? And just so you know, right now wearables are in the fad stage, and that happens with every new technology. It's the early adopters, it's faddish, right? But we're moving out of that already. The second stage is always the fashion stage, or fashionable. I don't mean couture fashion. I mean, it becomes accepted, it becomes normal. So for a while the technology is an oddity or a fad, then it just sort of permeates and becomes normal. But when it really gets exciting is when it moves into the fundamental stage, when it integrates. And we've seen this again with many technologies. Think of computers. At first they were fads, basically. Then they were fashionable. Some people had them if they needed them. And pretty soon they were integrated into our lives. They were fundamental. It's happened with the smartphone. And it's going to happen with wearables. And I apologize for the kind of cheesy PowerPoint graphics, but what the image there is representing is what's sometimes called the quantified self. We're going to be all sensored up. We're going to be measuring not just our biometrics in a dozen different ways or more, but also our psychometrics, also our sociometrics. We're going to be measuring everything about our lives, and we're going to be logging all that, what's called life logging. So we're going to be recording a lot of what we see and hear and do. And that's just the start. That's not the actual big story. The cover story is going to be when wearables merge with social media and merge with the Internet of Things. And what you're looking at in this graphic is basically that's completing the loop. That's everything connected to everything. So that is the Internet of everything. And that ultimately is where this is going. We're going more quickly than I even expected. And that's the big story. Now, what does that mean to us individually? Well, for one, it means there's going to be these giant clouds of data that represent each of us, growing constantly. A lot of data. And that's going to present some really interesting opportunities, and it's also going to present some really major challenges. And we'll talk about those two things kind of toward the end of the presentation, or the fourth part. Quick couple of terms. Contextual computing. Contextual computing, timer's so long. Contextual computing is a term that predated wearables, and it just means computing devices that are aware of their environment. They're aware of the context in which they're functioning. They're aware of other devices. The term I like that some people have started to use is contextual intelligence. And what that refers to is two things. One is the devices themselves will have a kind of intelligence. They'll have this awareness of where they are, what they're doing, and what they're doing in context to other devices. But contextual intelligence is also the promise. This is what will be delivered to us by these technologies. We will have a better contextual awareness of our lives, of what we're doing, of decisions we're making, of options that we have. So this is really the sort of the undercurrent of the entire wearables market. Here's this is my version. This is why I asked about the movie. So this is my version of what's going to happen. It's going to be like, you know, when all these things are talking to each other. And this is probably not an exaggeration. In fact, I'll show you a product in a little while that basically does this. Try to come up with a definition. There are no formal definitions yet, widely accepted definitions, so I cobbled a few things together. First of all, wearables must be electronic. They must have sensors, obviously. They must be user-controlled. They should enhance experience in some way, some kind of utility. They must be worn, not carried, so a smartphone is not a wearable by most people's definition. And they must make you look like a dipshit. Okay, see now you're laughing, but the dipshit factor is very important in starting new technologies. It's almost always there. So some of you might remember going into a conference years ago, and you go to the conference table, and everybody's got their yellow pads and pens and their paper reports, and one guy walks in with this laptop computer, and it's as big as a briefcase, and he opens it up and he starts tippy-tappy typing away like this. And everybody at the table's looking at him going, what a dipshit. But suddenly, boom, everybody walks in with their computers, right? No time at all, it's gone from fad to fashion to fundamental. So that's kind of the definition we're working with. I'm going to do a really, really brief history here because Mike's going to throw me off at some point. You could say wearables started with the shoe phone. We had smart TV series, mid-60s, but no one ever figured out how that works, so I don't think it qualifies. This probably is the first truly wearable, the calculator watch. Does anybody have one of these or own one of these? I saw a couple, three timid hands. Okay. Did you know, this is the startling part of everything I researched, you can still buy these. These are still on the market. And that means somebody is buying them, but I haven't seen one in the longest time, so it must be some sort of a stealth thing. Of course, the Bluetooth headset, that's a very obvious. That was really where I think wearables got going. It's very familiar. And then, of course, the Star Trek communicator. From Star Trek Next Generation, because, you know, in the first Star Trek, it was a flip phone kind of a thing. But later they made it this. The only thing is this is the thing that always got me about this. The user interface really sucks. Because in order to make it work, you had to tap it like that. And then you had to tell it who you were and who you were calling. So it'd be like, Picard Enterprise, Picard Enterprise. Well, we had caller ID in the 20th century. Right? And think about it. You're hanging from a precipice, 10 fingers, there's burning flames underneath you there. You don't want to take one hand off and tap your chest, you get your laser cannon, you got to take it off the trigger and the mutants are coming. So it's always bothered me that seemed like such a low-tech interface. It should be more like Google Glass. Here we are contemporizing it. Fitbit started way back in 2008. I didn't realize that. And so it's been about 6 years already. Right up to now we have the Apple Watch. These are basically the products you kind of recognize. They're the ones that are the bulk of the market right now. And I don't want to have to belabor those. I found this one chart that was pretty interesting. This breaks down 244 products by category. And you can see a lot of them fall under lifestyle, so they can be in more than one category. But the individual categories that are strong are, of course, fitness and medical. And that's going to be like that for quite some time. They'll be out ahead. But do not write off entertainment, gaming, industrial, commercial, even pets. Okay, so there's 4 products for pets. I have no idea what those are. Probably not a smartwatch, but... All right, I have to go through these pretty quickly, but I didn't want to look at the products that everybody sees all the time, or talks about all the time, or here now, so I went to look at products that are in the pipeline or coming. So you might have heard of Google's contact lens that measures glucose levels for diabetics. But you probably haven't seen the Call Me gloves in the Hammacher Schlemmer catalog has this for $80. The reason I put it in is this thing has a 9.5 on the dipshit scale. And you cannot get really any higher than that. That's pretty much, that's the ceiling almost. Touchman, this is coming, not here yet. Stainless steel fibers in the gloves allow you to use touchscreen devices and keep your hands warm. You're all sitting here going, well, this is like, I don't care, it's Southern California. But when I gave this presentation in Nova Scotia last month, I had a standing ovation at this point. People were out of their minds for this product. Here's one that's in the research labs. This is North Carolina State University. This is just a little thing like a Band-Aid, but it's a little piece of metal that measures capacitance, so it can measure touch and pressure and force, and you can basically put it on any joint or any place on the body. So I'm looking at this thinking, for a do-it-yourselfer like me, it's going to be fantastic because I'll know just how hard I hit my thumb with that hammer, like precisely. It's coming, so is cloth batteries. This is out of Montreal Polytechnic School, and they've actually used some kind of a thermoplastic thread, and the fabric itself will store energy. You can see there's a little light kind of burning over there. One of the things they said in the literature, though, kind of a problem for technology that is wearable for cloth, and that is it's not waterproof. It shorts out in water. So it's a bit walk out. Well, it's running. Or this would become like the suede of wearables. Right? You just can't go outside in it, right? There's a lot of companies doing this. They're generating electricity from the body heat, and there's a lot of different ways of doing this. There's a company that's out there that's proposing a tooth phone. It's a concept, but it has a microphone and a speaker, and it's embeddable. But the marketers are saying basically, well, they don't think it's going to work because people aren't going to want to trade in their old tooth every 2 years, right? The ring does almost nothing. It just buzzes, so it'll buzz until you're getting a phone call or take your medicine or you have an appointment. But the Cracker Jack people are talking to them. Cracker Jack's been trying to get into digital for a long time. This does almost exactly the same thing as the Ringly, which is almost nothing, but it's in a fashionable, stylish way. Could also be a medic alert bracelet, is what they're saying. Here's another Ring product called the Ring, just Ring. This one picked up $750,000 on Kickstarter. And what it does is it allows you to write in the air or draw in the air and have that image appear on a screen. And you can also link this to devices, the Internet of Things, so you could have things like, you pick your nose, car starts, and things like that. So this is actually going to be hugely popular, apparently, at least from the amount of money they were able to pull in. Oh, come on. What was that? The June sun protection bracelets actually makes a lot of sense, right? So it's a device that measures your sun exposure, and you have a little app, and you can set up different things. You can have like 1 for mild tan, and you can have 10 for total incineration. And it has practical uses, and it's very attractive. So they're also looking at productizing this soon. Smart shoes makes kind of sense. These have little buzzers in the front and the back and the sides. You sync these shoes up with your GPS and your Google Maps, and then as you walk, it will tell you where to turn and when you get to your destination. The liability on this is the shoes can get out of sync and tell you to go in 2 directions at the same time, which leads to, but they'll work on that. Black socks. RFID tags in your socks so the socks know each other and they compare themselves. $120, you get the RFID tags and 10 pairs of socks. Bumble? No idea, but isn't that cool? Half lock is what I was talking about. This is like, you know those dog shock collars? This you wear on your wrist, and then you program it to watch out for behaviors you want to stop. And it will, when you try to do that behavior, right? So you're walking to McDonald's, you go to the front door, right? Or your devices detect that you're a little drunk, and then they detect you're calling your old girlfriend, and they say, that kind of thing. Nixie, this was one of the finalists in the Intel competition for wearables. Okay, again, it's kind of hard to see. Basically, it's a little camera, and it's got 4 little helicopter blades. And what you do is you take those arms and you wrap them around your wrist, and it becomes a bracelet. And then when you want to take a selfie, you touch it, it unfolds, it flies out a little distance, turns around, and takes your picture. Mimi, I just put this, I didn't want to use any of the bands and bracelets, but this one's interesting because this is an ID bracelet that uses your cardiac rhythm. And I didn't realize your cardiac rhythm is as unique as your fingerprint or your iris. So this, when you're wearing this, as you come up to your computer or your device or your front door or your car, it would check your heart rate, your heart rhythm, and go, oh, that's him. And it would alert the device that you're clear. Yeah, I know. There's a lot of stuff like that. Solar fiber, photovoltaic thread. Didn't know we had it, but we do. You can put it in almost anything, and you stand in the sun, and you will charge your devices, right? It's recommended, though, if you're standing around charging your devices with this, that you also pair it with the June sun protection so you don't make that mistake. For the kids, a couple things for the kids. Sproutling, this attaches to your baby. This measures all your baby's vital signs and their sleep habits, and it pairs with a charging device that sits in the room, and it measures temperature, humidity, light, and sound. And the whole idea here is so now parents won't have to check on their children unless it's absolutely necessary. Yes? It's coming. It's going to be a product. And this measures, of course, the baby's output, vibration level. It will detect urinary tract infections. And I have to say, it will add a whole new meaning to the term data dump. Smartwatches for kids, I threw these in because I wanted to tell you, don't get into it. If you want to get into the market, don't do this. There are so many Kickstarter and Indiegogo startups trying to go with a kid's smartwatch, right? And nobody's even selling any. So just stay away from that. There's other areas to focus on. And now, I promised, fun to wear. This is from our friends at Durex, the condom people. Excuse me. The condom people. They have taken men's and women's underwear and studded it with little actuators about the size of a fingertip all over the underwear. And these things work like little vibrators. And what you do, the idea is, you give it to your partner, you give them the app, and then they can be anywhere in the world, and they can actuate your underwear. Now, you're giggling, but 7.5 million views already, and the marketing director has quoted, "We've tapped a deep demand for this product," and they're coming to market with it. So be prepared. All right, let's get serious. Market forecasts. What's out there? What's going to happen? Well, this is not a growth chart. This is actually, I took 6 different market research firms and looked at what their forecasts were for different years. And as you can see, way down here, $6 billion in a couple of years from IMS research, all the way up to 2024. ID Tech is thinking, hey, $70 billion business. But look at 2018. You've got from 19 billion up to 50 billion. So what does this chart tell you? Well, it tells you They don't know. They're guessing, and they literally are, we lost the clip on this. They literally are guessing. They literally don't know. Why? Well, we have no track record yet. We don't even have a working definition, really. And this always happens at the beginning of every new market. Wild swings in how people interpret what's going to happen, and it doesn't matter because it's in Bs, it's in billions. And so that's what you really have to pay attention to, and the market research, it'll catch up once they have the data. You can also look at the money that's going in investments. Look how measly, $7 million in 2009, and this year we're already up to $500 million, and the year's not over. This was as of September. So if you look at the kinds of numbers of deals, and that might not be visible all the way back, this will tell you how many deals are represented by that amount of money. And again, you'll be able to see this better if you download the presentation. But look what they're saying. They're actually predicting that it might hit $1 billion. Okay, we've only got 3 months left to go from $500 to $1 billion. And this, again, market researchers, they just talk. But you get the idea, right? The money is coming this way. So this slide is really that old adage, you know, you want to be in wearables, follow the money, because that's where it's going. A couple of interesting sort of factoids. In the forecast for smart fabrics, which we didn't even have a little while ago, projected $2.6 billion in just a few years. From nothing to $2.6 billion. And that's just one small part of the wearables market. Here's a couple others. Right now, 30% of Americans in the 18 to 34 category, they have or plan to own some kind of wearable product. What I think is a little more startling is 1 in 5 by next year are expected to have some kind of a wearable product. That's very fast growth, very fast adoption. And it does mean that we're moving past the fad stage. I'm going to skip this slide. Basically, I started to break down who are the consumers. If you're thinking like a marketer and you're trying to think, you know, who's buying this stuff and at what stage, I sort of broke this down and gave it some fun names. If you go to the presentation and download it, there'll be an explanation of each one of these, but not today. So here, quickly, Rackspace did a study of 4,000 people in the US and in Britain. And they basically asked them, you know, these are people who own wearables, asked them, you know, what do you feel about your technology? Well, 82% versus 71% believe wearables enhance their lives. Okay, that's a pretty high number, actually. It's pretty happy customers. 87 and 81 believe wearables enhance their abilities, help them do something better. And 7% and 2% say that wearables enhance them. Now, obviously, Rackspace didn't ask that, but you know they're out there, right? You know there's somebody out there going, thinking this is a gateway technology to being a superhero. You know, I can be an X-Man with all this stuff, right? That kind of thing. They also said, and asked about their using the wearables, 47% feel more intelligent when they're using them. So yeah, more intelligent. All right. 61% feel more informed, and that makes a lot of sense. You've also got 60% who feel more efficient, and of course 95% who feel entirely pleased. And you know who they are. Or you know who you are, right? Kind of cool, kind of creepy. What I did is I looked at all the benefits people are touting, and some of them to me look really cool, and some of them look kind of creepy. So I'm going to go through these, and I'm not sure how well you can read the slides in the back, so I'll try to pretty much read through them. Accelerating training using virtual and augmented reality, that's got to be cool. It's being done now. Improve athletic performance, right? That's cool, being done now. Improve health awareness and health self-responsibility. Really could use that, and that would be a terrific benefit. Improve communication between healthcare providers and patients. We need that. All these are good things. Increase accuracy, productivity, using those heads-up displays and various kind of haptic feedback devices. All cool. Now, what about mitigating error and injury risk by monitoring worker activity patterns for fatigue and inattention? Okay, maybe, no. What about increasing productivity by using local positioning systems to determine workforce behaviors? Where you are, what you do, how long you're doing it. Where, okay. Allowing HR to better understand employee satisfaction, motivation, and focus using EEG and other sensors, reading your brain waves. Get a little creepier. Reducing health insurance costs, good. By generating data that monitors health conditions and associated behaviors all the time. It's, you know, double-edged sword. Real quick, Jawbone actually published a cool and creepy kind of a thing. Did you see this chart where they actually showed how people woke up during the Napa earthquake? And they showed, these are 4 different areas, how, of course, the closer you were, the more people woke up. It shows you when you go back to sleep. And this could be used for disaster preparedness, to learn about disaster response. But when I saw it, I went, Jawbone knows when you are sleeping. So, I don't know. You have to make up your own mind, cool or creepy. What are the major trends? Well, we've kind of gone over them already. It'll migrate away from the risks in the face. This is temporary. That's not going to be the main locale. Increased number of crowdfunding. There's a lot of it now, but there's going to be a lot more. Integration with the Internet of Things. We kind of touched on that. Greater device compatibility has to happen. Right now, they don't talk to each other very well. More functions in fewer devices. That has to happen, and is happening. Advances in contextual computing. We talked about that. We're just at the beginning of that. The algorithms are just starting to be developed. One-time and just-in-time technologies. So this means there'll be some technologies you only bring out and then you just use it when you need it. You'll put it on you and then you take it off you. Then there's also just use it once and you toss it. Disposable. And we will have, of course, Bluetooth up the butt. and literally, and actually we have it now. But I didn't want to go into that. Okay, here's a little apology. I was going to tell you, where are all the wearable opportunities? Where's all that money? Well, when I looked, I couldn't find anything that isn't going to be impacted by wearable technology. No sector at all. So it's more like, where aren't the opportunities? Try and find it. My suggestion would be, if you're an expert or have an interest in one particular sector already, ask the question, what will this sector look like when wearables technology comes to it? What are the opportunities that wearables represents in that sector, in that area? And the answer to that question could lead to some really interesting opportunities. Here's a chart which you won't be able to see. It'll be in the presentation. It's from Beecham Research out of the UK. It does a great job of laying out all the sectors, all the applications, all the products. So if you're really interested in wearables, I would encourage you either go directly to their site, not right this minute, please, or just go to the presentation and it'll be reproduced like that. I'm going to give you one other thing for opportunities, little tip. Right now, wearables are in the Stone Age, okay? Literally in the Stone Age. But when you're in the Stone Age, that's not the time to invest in rocks, or spearheads, or stone axes, right? What you want to do is you want to look that next step ahead. So right now you should be looking at the Bronze Age of wearables, because it's coming really fast. So just ahead of us is where the real market excitement is. It's not right here on our wrists right now. Let's look at the challenges. Again, kind of a laundry list here. We could do a whole conference just on this. You've got hype, of course, every new technology. Misconceptions, a lot of that right now. It just hasn't settled yet. Outright lies. There are some Kickstarter type crowdfunding programs that have been proven to be complete scams, and people are throwing in money and never getting their product, or it comes in, half-assed. Data security, well, that's got to be huge, right? Because more devices, more potential leaks. Personal safety, not only from distractions and from electromagnetic radiation, but think about, with all that information out there, this is like a hacker stalker's dream. The opportunity to get so deep into people's lives, right? Battery life, big problem already right now. It's a technology issue though. Governmental regulation is going to be an issue, particularly in healthcare. Behavioral change, always difficult. When you bring a new technology and you bring it in fast and people have to change their behaviors. The data tsunami, which we talked about with the big clouds, right? This is going to be one of the very biggest issues, but that's a storage problem that can be handled. Because what I think is the big thing for wearables, the big challenge is this idea of how are you going to make sense of all this data? More and more and more data, how do we make sense of it? How do we use it, right? Because if you can't use it, there's no point even collecting it. So how are we going to do that? I have an idea. Okay, so and we're just about done here. Here's how I kind of envision that problem. And although there's like 12 products up there, but imagine dozens and dozens and dozens of them. And the products all have an app, right? They all have an individual app, different metrics, different things you look at. And it's going to be, it actually already is, impossible to go from app to app to app to app. right? That will be all we do. You know, we could spend our entire day visiting all the apps that represent all of our data. So what we have to do is find a way to integrate those, to roll those up into something that's understandable. They have to talk to each other and they have to work together. Okay? And again, I have some ideas on that. And one idea would be, what if we created some kind of a, what I'm calling the IWUI studio, Integrated Wearables User Interface Studio, IB for short. And it doesn't have to be formalized, but bring together people who are experts in UI, UX, graphics, data analysis, various aspects of the problem, and then just kind of like in a hackathon, try to experiment with some things. Come up with a lab type environment where we're just trying stuff to see how it works, because we don't have it yet, but it has to be here. And I don't think, in fact I'm really convinced, it's not going to be created by one company, even Apple. And if you've seen Apple's HealthKit interface, it's a perfect example. I could put it up here as an example of what not to do. So that's kind of my sort of call to action. If anybody's interested, you can give me a buzz. Go to my website, send me an email, even respond on the meetup site. I'm going to leave with 2 quotes. One is this guy from IDEO, and I hope you can all read it, but basically he's saying, hey, right now it's all the same thing. It's the metric isn't there. And when he says it's going to get exciting when we start asking completely different questions, which we haven't really started to do yet, right? The other quote is me. I'm going to quote myself because nobody else will. And it's going back to this idea of contextual computing, which, as I said, I think that's the core promise of all of this. And so my quote is simply, the Internet of Everything, in the Internet of Everything, contextual intelligence is all about asking the right questions. It's the questions that we have to find, not the answers. The answers always take care of themselves. And as some presenter here said like a month ago, the answers are really cheap. What's really golden are the right questions. So that being said, I also have to say that's always been the trick. Right? That's the whole, as I started out by saying, that's the trick in just about everything you do. If you get the questions right, everything else takes care of itself. And thank you for tuning in. You've been very polite and patient. I know it went a little bit long, but that's all I got.
Great job. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. Rob said he's not going to answer any, but we'll see if we can get him to. So,
or maybe if somebody asks one, somebody else in the room will know.
Yeah. So I'm going to give the mic to John. If you have a question, raise your hand. Stand up, give your name, what company you're with, and here we go.
Thanks. That's great, Rob. Another creepy one, of course, is your boss administering a dose of caffeine or something at the wrong time.
Yeah, you're right. In other words, a little biological interference once we see something. There was a Dilbert cartoon I had up here at the beginning that just kind of said it all. It's the invasion or the invasiveness potential is pretty scary in some ways.
Rob, what's the level of discussion going on in the market and the research that you did about, on a regulatory level, that enables an individual or to make sure that they have control over their information, as opposed to, like, how much caffeine are you having, how much time are you spending in the bathroom? I mean, I worked for a firm in London, and they were concerned that too many of the guys were spending too much time in the bathroom, so they basically cut off the bottom 18 inches of the door so they could see their feet there. That was an early time.
The only thing I can say to that is, in my experience, various forms of regulation used to be more proactive. They kind of happen as something was starting. Now, regulation is retroactive. It's always trying to catch up. And so you see that with data privacy laws. You see that with Facebook and Google. You see it with the FCC. Actually, I had a couple slides here, which will be in the other presentation, of the FCC's trying to catch up with all this. In fact, every governmental agency is playing catch up, and in my opinion, they won't catch up. It's a losing game until they start asking different questions and they start doing things in different ways. Anybody else?
So I was reading about some addictive behaviors where a gentleman was wearing one of these Fitbit type devices, and he was too competitive. He ended up taking it off so that he could relax a little more. What similar things have you seen? with regards to that?
Yeah, sort of like the rat in the wheel, right? It's like, and if he had a little counter on there, I can do this, and then he drops dead. The way I always would cover that from an article's point of view is when there's a new technology, in fact, I'll even explain exactly how I would respond to people. People would say, hey, will we ever have blank? You know, will we ever have phones we can carry around in our hand? Will we ever have machines that can print 3D objects? Will we ever have computers in our pockets? Will we ever, be able to download our consciousness into a computer? What I always say is, yes, eventually. And I don't care what you're asking. In fact, I cut them off. They say, will we ever have? And I go, yes. But then I say, but you're asking the wrong question. So the real question is what you're asking, that is, what will it change? How will we adapt ourselves to it or it to us? What are the potential pitfalls it represents and what are those potential benefits? So it's really the human interface question that's always most important. And it, for some reason, it often is one of the last questions we ask because we get so excited about just getting the technology out there, getting our hands on it. That's how I would answer that as best I can. Yeah?
Do you see implantables as an extension to implantables as an extension to wearables, or is that do you see that as a different market?
No, same. It's wearables as a term may not even stick, and I think it's a bit of a misnomer in some way. It's a little bit limiting, but this is really just about being censored up, about being a fully quantified self, and all the ways that we're going to do that. And there's a lot going on in implantables. There's some guy out there who's put little magnets in his fingers so he can interface with devices, and there's people, the whole transhumanist movement, I don't know if you're that familiar with it, where people are thinking we're going to evolve past our human state in some way using technology. So, and what's it called, the human-machine interface people, there's a name for that. But that's cyborg movement, or think it might be. The terminology in a new technology often gets in the way. Because it's limiting, because when we think what we have here at the start, but that's not what we have at all. And you can look at almost any major technological movement, and you can see how it kind of gets awkward. The early terminology is awkward. We have this problem in journalism constantly. This is what you have big arguments with, in the floor with your staff. What do we put in the headline? That word's no good. I remember when I had a publisher who forbid me to use the word multimedia at one point, because we were starting to get these little digital video files and little audio files, and so something was really happening there, but he said, no, multimedia, he said, that means when you have 9 Kodak carousel projectors, and they're all synchronized with music. That's multimedia, and that was the term that was used for those old multimedia slideshows, right? And yet the term obviously has hung around, and we had to fight in the editorial staff to actually get that on the cover one time. I know we're at the end of our time, but yeah.
A proposition. I propose that the dipshit scale be now known as the Nixie scale, because anything that is on your wrist and then can fly off and take pictures, that's 100% right there. Everything else compares to that.
They had a promo picture of a woman scaling a rock face, and flying out like 3 feet from her was this Nixie camera, and I thought, well, you couldn't get that picture any other way. So you laugh at this stuff, and then the next day it's like everybody's got one.
It's very awesome, Rob. Thank you so much.
All right.
With our very attractive crowd here, so come over here.
Oh, yeah.
Your sweet picture for the internet.